Hello, artists. Today we are going to be doing our Renoir umbrellas using a lot of paint, so it should be very fun. I have gathered together all my materials. Before you begin, it's probably best that you get everything ready so that you're not pausing and scrambling around. So I've gotten everything. We do have a lot of stuff for this one, actually. I have my pencil with an eraser. I have a Sharpie marker. Then I have my paints. We're going to be using acrylic paints. So I have a white, just a neutral blue, and a black acrylic paint. And I've put that in my paint palette here. I actually have two palettes because I'm going to be mixing these paints into this one to make different shades and tints of the blue. We'll be using that later, so I'll put that to the side. I also have my watercolors. So I have this watercolor palette. You might just have that those watercolors from Crayola, which will work just totally fine. I have a couple different colors blues. If you don't have different blues, we're going to be using white and black to make the tints and shades for the background. So that'll be fun. I'm going to put this to the side. I have my cup of water here for my watercolor and cleaning my brush. And I have my paintbrushes. I have a wider paintbrush here that I'm using for the background, and then I have a thinner paintbrush that I'm going to use to painting in my umbrella. So I'm going to get, and I also have some paper towels here to clean off my paintbrush. So let's get started. I'm going to put my painting stuff to the side. Our first thing is to draw our umbrella. So we're going to have our paper orientated. So it's portrait. So portrait is up and down. So when I say portrait, I mean up and down like this, kind of like how you would hang a portrait of a person. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw our umbrella. So we need to draw, we're going to have just a very large umbrella in the middle of our paper. So I'm just going to draw, I'm going to start from about the middle here. And I'm going to draw just a very big U, upside down U shape. I like that. So we want our umbrella to take up a lot of the paper because it's going to be, we're going to focus on doing the different shades and tints on the inside. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 3 to 4 bouncy lines to make our umbrella, different parts of our umbrella. So I'm going to draw just some hills or some bouncy lines going in between. Yeah, a really swell one over there at the very end. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember, you can make it all a little bit different. All right, so the next thing we need to do is draw a little top, a little hat. So we're just going to draw an oval, flattened oval on the top of our umbrella. That's what kind of holds everything together. Next thing we're going to do is to draw the curved lines from the bottom of our umbrella up to our hat. This hat also gives us a point that we can have all of our lines meet. It gives us a nice point. And we're going to draw a curved line. We're not going to draw a straight line going to it. We want to draw some shape to our umbrella. I'm going to go up and kind of curve it at the top when I go into it. And I can go from this side and curve my line along the same, kind of like the same line that you did the outside here. So this is going to be a little bit straighter up and down, that one. And then finally this one. So you curving in. So you're going to go from, so where your hill is, you're going to go at the bottom of your hill and go up to your hat. Bottom of the hill and up to your hat and follow that curve on the outside. All right, our umbrella is almost complete. We're missing one more thing. Yes, we are missing the handle. You can't hold the umbrella without a handle. So umbrella handle is pretty simple. It's going to go from about the middle of your umbrella, draw a straight line down, and then you're going to make a J. This is going to be kind of like an old school umbrella, kind of the time that Renoir was alive, an old umbrella. And then we're going to follow that J just along that path, same path, and make another J. Then we're just going to make another little hill, curved line, connect the two. All right, we have our umbrella. Next thing we need to do is we're going to use our Sharpie. So we're going to outline this because we're going to be painting on top of, we paint on top of our pencil. it will kind of smear that pencil. We don't want to smear pencil into our painting. So we want to make sure that we go over top of that pencil, and then we're going to erase that. So Renoir, when he was a boy, he was actually a very good painter. And his first job was painting porcelain, which is just like teacups and saucers. And he just painted flowers on them. And he was actually just 13 years old. It's pretty amazing, but there's a couple examples of some of the teacups and saucers that he painted when he was a boy. And they're very well done. Amazing. He's also a very good singer, and his music teacher wanted him to become an opera singer when he grew up. But all he did when he was in class, for music class, was just sit and draw. A lot of artists start out kind of just sitting and drawing in class. All right, so we've outlined our umbrella with our Sharpie. So we're done drawing. Our next step is going to be coloring in the background. So we're going to be using watercolors to color in the background. So I'm going to bring my watercolors over here so you can kind of see what I'm working with. So we're going to be doing blues. Our whole painting is going to be in blues. If you looked at the sample that we're using, it's kind of, Renoir used a lot of blues for this. So we're going to be using blue, black, and white, but we're going to be making it all different tints and shades. So I also have my water cup here. And I'm going to be using my large brush, my wide brush, because I'm going to be doing a lot of the background. I don't need to be very detailed with this. So I'm just going to get my blue watercolor. I don't want to add too much water to my watercolor paints because then it gets oversaturated. Oversaturated means it gets too much water. And then when you go to paint on our paper, it'll just be really light. You'll see if it's really light, it'll come out like that. We want to just get enough water on our watercolor to activate it or to get that paint wet enough so that we can use it. I'm just keep adding as I go along. And be very careful not to go into my umbrella as best as I can. If I go into it a little bit, that's okay. Remember, like, oh, see, I went a little bit in there. You can make some mistakes. This is again why I'm using the very large brush. And make sure to put something down behind this because you want to fill up the whole page. So I just put, this is the backing to my watercolor pad. I just put down some newspaper or another sheet of paper. I'm also using watercolor paper for this. So if you have a thicker paper that you can use for painting, it'll hold up a lot better. So I'm just going and I'm using that same blue, kind of do the whole outside. You do notice that I have a couple shades of blue on my palette already, and we're going to be going and using those, but I just want to start out using that same blue and filling up the whole thing. You can already tell that you have however much water is in with your watercolor is different. You're already getting different tints and shades of your blue. So what do I mean when I say tint and shade? So kind of think of like a car, like the windows are tinted in a car. But actually, this is kind of the opposite. When you're dealing with paint, a tint doesn't mean darker, it means lighter. So if we add white or if we have a lighter shade, that is a tint. Or yeah, a shade is darker. So the way that I can remember it is I think of like if I'm standing in the shade, it's darker in the shade. It's kind of confusing. Even doing art for a very long time, kind of sometimes get confused which one's a tint and which one's a shade. And we just need that for describing, so it's really not that important. But if you're ever critiquing something or looking at something and say, I like that shade or that tint. So I'm just filling this all up with the blue. Now I'm going to go into my other blue. Let's see if I can. So I'm going to clean my brush off. So whenever I go from one color to the next, I want to make sure I clean off my brush. So I'm dipping my paintbrush inside of my water and I'm pushing it down and I'm wiping it off on the side. And then I have my paper towel over here. I can wipe it off. Now you know your paintbrush is clean, and I'm wiping on my paper towel and you see that I don't see any blue coming up, so I know it's clean. And I'm just going to go in and I'm going to activate or get my other blue kind of wet. So you see it. And this is just going to add some more different color blue into there. The cool thing about watercolors, you can go back over top of colors that you did before, but a lot of times it'll show up a little bit different. And I want my background to be kind of like, I want to see those paintbrush strokes. The one thing about the Impressionists is you could tell, you could see their paintbrush strokes. And we learned about that with Monet, especially. He was one of the first artists to do that, is be able to see his paintbrush strokes. Another thing we can do, so let's say that I didn't have another blue. Say I only had one color blue, but most of your sets will have a black and a white. So I was talking about, we can use black and white to change colors. Over here, I have my black. So I'm going to use my black. I'm going to add a little bit of black. Now, I don't want to add too much black. Now, it's okay if I'm going from my black on my page to my black, because black is just a solid black. So it's not going to like get muddy up my black too much. Be okay. And you can see I kind of went really heavy up there with that black. But if I want to go back and I say, oh, I don't like it's too dark up there, can I just go back? But I want to make sure that I'm going and cleaning off my paintbrush in between. Because if I went into my blue now, I would get black all up in my blue. So you can see I'm cleaning off my paintbrush and I'm making sure I don't have any, can't see any black there. So I know my paintbrush is clean. I can go back and get some blue, put that on top. Make that a little bit lighter. I can always go back in between, clean up that paintbrush a little bit before I go back in. A lot is to be important is make sure we're not mixing our watercolors too much in the actual watercolor itself. Again, so let's say I wanted to make it lighter over here, turn my watercolors around. I have my white. Now this is where I really want to be important to clean my paintbrush, because I don't want my white to be all blue. So you can see I'm putting water on my white and it's not blue. I want to make sure I keep that clean. And then you can see when I go in, setting that white. Now, definitely in between here, I want to clean my paintbrush in between mixing. So I want to make sure that I'm not showing any white on my paintbrush, because that blue will really get into that white. All right, so we've colored the whole background. We've got different tints or lighter areas of the blue. We've got different shades or darker areas of our blue. So we're just going to let this sit and dry until we start on our next part of our lesson. So I'm just going to pause the video here. All right, so our watercolor has dried and we're ready to add our acrylic, or just our poster paint, our liquid paint. So I have a blue here, a white, and a black. And I'm going to mix those together. So we're going to start with our blue. We're going to make different. We're going to start with doing blue and making it lighter. So I'm going to put some blue into here. I'm going to add some white to it. I'm just going to mix that around. I'm going to keep adding white until I get a nice lighter blue. So now I have a light blue. Really cool. So we're going to start, and we're on step 4, if you're following along with our steps. So we're actually gonna go from light and then just keep adding blue. So we're gonna start in our middle, and we're gonna want this to be our lightest. So we're gonna do light and kind of darker and then the darkest going out. I'm actually gonna even add a little bit more white to this. I'm gonna make this a really light blue, a really light tint. I'm just gonna paint that middle. I'm gonna try to keep it, and remember, make it over that black a little bit, which is okay. We can go back once we're done and go back over with our paintbrush. Use our Sharpie on top of it. Kind of want to fill up the whole thing though. We don't want to leave a lot of white. So we want to make sure to fill that in all of it. So we have a nice light tint of blue. So this one I'm going to keep adding. So I'm going to use clean off my paintbrush here, my water. I'm going to go with my blue. Maybe I'll add some back into that white there. If you don't have a paint palette like me, you can just use a piece of cardboard, maybe like an empty cereal box. Something like that. All right, I'm going to paint this one. So you can see that is a little bit darker. So our goal is to have each one of these sections be a different color of blue. But we still want everything to be blue. It'll look really cool at the end here. And also, since we're using 2 different types of paint, this is what's called mixed media. So mixed media means we're using mixed amount of material. So we're using 2 different materials for this one. All right. This one I'm gonna do the same, but I'm gonna actually make this one a little bit darker. So I might make this the solid blue. So I'm going to use one of my extra palettes here. This is going to be my pure blue, will be over here. So again, I'm going to clean off my paintbrush like that. And I'm going to use my solid blue for this one. This side. You can see this even darker. It's an even darker blue than we had before. So this is our pure. This is called, what is this called here? Brilliance blue. This is our pure, just brilliant blue without any white added to it. Without any black added to it. Again, I'm trying to be very careful to stay inside the line. So if I go over a little bit, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Let's go back. Adding a little bit, and we want to try to be little white as possible. I'm actually going to go up and top and add that blue to my hat. All right. Next, we're going to add a little bit more black to this one. So I have my blue there. I'm going to add a little bit of the black to this blue here. Make it just a little bit darker. And then I'm going to go on this side. You can see that's even a darker blue. It almost looks black on your screen. Don't need to add a lot of black. The black is really, adding just a little bit of black is going to go a very long way. So make sure when you're adding your black not to add too much, because otherwise you're just going to have a black, total black on the side. I might have added even a little bit too much black. I'm going to mix it in with the blue there. Again, we're just trying to fill in that section of blue. Just having different, they're now the shades. Remember, shade. So we think of like you're standing in the shade of a tree. Shade is darker, tint is lighter. The final one over here, that almost looks black on your screen, but If you look over here, you can see the blue is almost solid. So I'm going to add just a little bit more black. And this is going to be almost a solid black. This is going to be a very blackish blue on this side. I want to fill in all that whole way. There we go. So now we have our blue, this is our pure blue, and we have a couple tints, so lighter, again, tint is lighter of blue, and a couple shades. Now we just need to finish up coloring. So I'm just going to color in use some of this blue, color in my handle here. And I'm going to use a little bit of white. You can add those brush strokes in there. Make it look kind of cool. Make it look very impressionist with your brush strokes. We want to see those brush strokes. And then we can add maybe some raindrops in here. The top using our lighter. Because it's raining, because we have an umbrella. So we want to add some raindrops. I'm just doing that with a little bit of the white and the blue. So this we can get that nice, see that those brush strokes in there with that nice impressionistic style of painting. And I want to put the raindrops underneath the umbrella because the umbrella is blocking. And there we go. All right, so there is our painting. Final thing I need to do is I need to sign it. So I'm going to wait for this to dry all the way. Now my watercolor is dry. I'm just going to use my Sharpie. I'll sign my artwork at the bottom right here. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the lesson, and I am very excited to see what you create. Thank you so much.